Hi, thank you for joining me today. I know it's taken a little bit of time out of your day, but thank you for considering the investment opportunity that I'm presenting with this. What we're looking at here is Canines Canines. It's a pet-focused dental lab. A lot of people don't even know dental labs exist, um, but what really doesn't, well, you'll see. You'll see. Who of these people is not being exclusively served? Well, as you can guess, the human or their pet by dental labs. All of these restorations are normal restorations you would find in somebody's mouth. This one was a little unique, but that's aside. In the US, there's over 12,000 dental labs churning out an uncounted number of dental restorations. How many are actually dedicated to serving your pet's needs? The answer is a big fat zero. There is not a single lab that I could find through actually a number of years of research now on this subject. But what does Canines Canines mean to this? It's the first of its kind, and basically the alternative to the labs currently, it would be an alternative to the labs currently being used. Competition, only human-oriented dental labs exist currently, and that's what dental veterinarians are using. No standard dental labs have formally tapped into this market, and that means tapped into the market that specifically serves the needs of animals or veterinary dentists. How? The way in which it will serve them is it will offer them material options they don't currently know they have, untapped technological potential. There are new things on the horizon in human dentistry, such as scanned in the mouth impressions that can be turned almost immediately into restorations. This would also serve as a hub for information and the exchange of information between dental veterinarians. Dental CAD/CAM integration, and that's what I was talking to a moment before with taking an impression of a CAD impression of the mouth and actually creating a restoration from that. It also would offer considerably lower prices than veterinary dentists are currently paying. And this would be national in scope, at least at the outset. We'll get into that later though. Our target market is veterinary dentists, and is by extension their pets and patients, or their their pets. The pets are the patients, but the patient owners. Veterinary dentists in general are driven. It takes a lot of schooling to become a veterinary dentist, as it does for any doctorate. They're highly educated. They have a mean income of 105 to 40. They show a normal stability and loyalty, whether it's a loyalty to animals or humans. Most of them are married. 70 to 88% are married. They only have a divorce rate of around 10%. They're caring animal people. They generally start that way, and that's why they get into it. They are respected in their calling, and they're rarely arrogant despite their education. And this probably largely has to do with the fact that although they get paid well, they don't get paid per visit as high as doctors, a human doctor would. But they also do this out of love more than a human doctor would. There's not necessarily that financial impetus that gets them into chasing this. It should be mentioned too that veterinary dentists in particular, the number I gave back here regarding the 105, that's for veterinarians as a whole. Veterinary dentistry is actually another category beyond just being a veterinarian. And there is no standard data, so I had to go with the lower, what is probably the lower number. Most of them are homeowners. Their population is dispersed throughout the United States. It's 40 states in particular have veterinary dentists in the U.S. They do tend to show up a lot in the high populous areas of California, New York, Illinois. There are a good number of them spread elsewhere, though. Texas has a few. But even Texas, and I know this is true for horses, while horses can't be treated like this, I know that they send their horses up here to the specialist up here, the one that I actually work for or work with, and who teaches others how to do this. There's approximately 170 veterinary dentists worldwide that are accredited. Of those, 150 of those are located in the United States. Now that is the accreditation that I could find for the United States, the American. Well, we'll get into it later, but other markets, the world, veterinary dentists other than in the U.S. Now there's a number in Europe, Mexico, Canada, but they only total about 20, and those have been accredited through the U.S. college. There's over 10,000 zoos worldwide, and they actually do have a need for that in their primates, and some of the other animals that have have permanent teeth. There's also over 100,000 zoological societies, and the societies in particular deal with things that people own unusual pets a lot of times, and they will belong to these. Some of those pets actually can have restorative work and have in the past. Our base of operation will be Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. The entire scope of it, of course, initially will be the United States area, and then further to worldwide. The head technician, which would be me, is available 24/7. I offer that to the dentists, human dentists I currently serve, but that would be as available to them. About the owners, myself and my wife, Samantha, and we will serve as general manager, or I will serve as general manager, head technician, customer service rep, human resources, and marketing and sales, while my wife will be office manager, lead accountant, customer service rep, and assistant technician. What I mean by lead accountant is that she actually does most of the tax work, but we always have an outside source take care of the finals on it, so that we make sure that we're that we're legal, essentially. In SWOT analysis, now I know I've covered some of this already, and I am going to go a little backwards on these two parts. We're going to start with weaknesses. Experience with animal dentistry is not as extensive as human dentistry. This is largely due to the fact that there just aren't as many. I mean, like I've said, the numbers I've given you, you compare that to the number of dentists. If there's 20-odd thousand dental labs, and each of them has, on average, 15 dentists, that gives you some idea of the numbers they're dealing with for humans, but there's not as many animal dentists. Medical idiosyncrasies, particular in animals such as base metal allergies, will need to be researched. That's an area that they're working on currently. Luckily, most of the metals actually go through a form of testing these metals on them, that any denture work or crown or bridge work, even fillings, have already gone through a lot of this testing with animals, because we need to test it on them before we can try it on humans. Potential for missteps in a very unstudied field of application, of course, because we don't know how they will react to certain things. With regards to dogs and cats and monkeys, we know how they will react, but if I'm asked to do something on some animal I've never dealt with before, we're unsure. I mean, we'll have to test it, we'll have to see. Limited experience with veterinary dentists as a whole. I've dealt with a total of 3 of them now. Actually, well, by extension, because I did deal with when the main guy that I do work with, when he was giving a class, I did meet all of those 7 dentists. We talked, but I wouldn't say that I have worked with them or for them extensively. My strengths. I've been a technician for over 35 years and have that much experience. I've worked in all parts of the dental technical field, and it's much larger than you would think. There are parts, basically you usually get pigeonholed into one part. I have had the opportunity to work with some spectacular dentists and dental veterinarians, so I've gotten a chance to do what 99% of other dental technicians have never done. Maybe closer to 100% really when it comes to the veterinary dental. Currently works in the expanded field of veterinary, which you already know we've talked about. I've already mentioned that I work with one of the few veterinary dentists in the country, and he is actually in charge, one of the people in charge of testing and accreditation. I have experience in alternative materials and methods beyond most dental technicians. This has to do with my own personal drive, and I love knowledge. I love to know what I'm working on. I love to know the way things are done and the way they were done, why things were abandoned, why we do them the way we do now. Personal drive to learn and test new methods, as I've just mentioned. I own and operate a human-oriented dental lab, which has been in operation successfully since 2003. There's product alternatives, both cheaper and more varied than the veterinary dentists are even aware of, and I hope to bring some of that knowledge to them. Also, I have almost no formal competition. The labs who do this, pretty much, you know, that the dentist will be in an area, he will seek out a lab because he has a need. But I believe that, based on my research, they're almost universally overcharging by 2 to 3 times what the value of that actual thing is. So initially there's going to be a $20,000 investment by my wife and myself. Lab space and equipment rental is where this goes. Utilities, of course, materials, marketing and sales, and an internet presence. Where it is going, essentially, is due to the nature of the restorative market and the rental agreement with Sirius Dental, a lack of business will not destroy canines. Canines only slow down profits, which is probably unique for most business. They can't basically start into a business and expect it to, you know, not do work and still be and still work. The following slides will demonstrate the viability of canines with data that shows a likely baseline, as well as through the introduction of stresses, the 2 financial sensitivity tests. So this is the basic break-even point for this, and this is just a generated moderate number, but essentially based on all of the other data I did. The break-even point for this, as you can see, $39,500. Financing base and sensitivity. So over the course of the first 3 years, Canines is likely to grow from having a first quarter end cash balance of over $15,000, but which will increase to $61,000 by the fourth quarter of the third year. The net income of the first year is expected to be just over $14,000 and will increase in the third year to $15,000 for the quarter. So sensitivities, the first one I did was bank fees. And you can see the numbers here. You can see that in the packets I've given you as well. And you can please feel free to check all those numbers. First quarter cash totals, even with an additional bank fee of $3,600, it will reduce the cash totals down to $15,000, less than $15,000. Fourth quarter to third year would see an ultimate smaller yield of $50,000 as opposed to $61,000. Oven costs. This would be if a large piece of equipment needed work or needed to be replaced. In this case, an oven. Different lies in the selling and administration's cost, not the other stuff we've mentioned. And although it starts off smaller, it actually comes out larger by the end, which was odd, but that's how it worked out. It has, you know, just you know the value. So, in the event that it ultimately doesn't work out, or I get to a point where I'm going to retire, what we're looking at is I will either sell Canines as a company if it's viable, or hand it down to one of my relatives, perhaps one of my kids or something like that, so it'll still stay in business. Regardless of whether Canines is profitable, there is a chance that nobody would want to buy it or none of my kids would want to take it over. In that event, I would simply walk away from the business, close up shop, sell the assets at that time. Finally, if it is a complete failure, it's not viable, which I don't see happening, given the broad latitude I have with regards to profits. If Canines proves entirely unprofitable, the owners will close the doors well before the potential retirement and write off any losses incurred. Why you should invest. This is a unique brand idea. There's no other dental lab like this. It's low risk, consequently. It may not be high yield. If things were to go bad, it could be a low yield, but it's almost guaranteed a yield. Little or no competition currently. The only thing I have is I'm facing human-based labs. There is no other competition with regards to an animal-based lab, like I said. I'm very qualified and I'm very driven. Obviously, I'm here doing this now. I have a proven track record of success with my current business. And this is, like I said, an untapped market. So thank you for your consideration, and we can talk individually about how much or if you would like to invest and what you would be looking for out of that investment. Thank you.